welcome to Five Guys Movies and Fries. This is Molander speaking. Since I picked this movie for our discussion this week, so we have four guys here on this recording. We have Jeff, we have Joe.
Hey, how's it going?
And we have Knack. Oh,
hello.
He'll
hello.
be in and out.
Oh, there he is.
Yeah, hello.
All right, everyone's here. So,
I am.
Go ahead.
No, I'm here. Hello.
All right. So, as I said, I picked the Matrix Resurrections for my turn here. Mostly, I mean, I love this movie and I wanted to talk about it, but I also just wanted to talk about the concept of sequels. So I had a few movies in mind, as we talked about last week, but this is really the one that I think is a really good example of it. Just on its own, though, I think this movie is cool. I think I'm very happy to see a franchise that I love sort of being reborn and coming back in, and hopefully they'll do some more sequels. The movie sets it up like they probably will. So yeah, that's why I picked this movie. Should we just kind of jump into our initial thoughts here, or?
Yeah, that's what we do. Don't start with me, because I don't like this movie.
Okay. Let's start with Knack.
All right. Well, I watched the movie shortly after it, maybe about a month after it released. It hasn't been out that long. I watched the trilogy beforehand, before putting this down. You know,
This one.
I was never on board with adding another installment to the Matrix. And like I can sort of appreciate where it was coming from. It's just I couldn't really take it all that seriously initially. I went and saw. I remember seeing the first Matrix movie in the theater back when it released, and kind of being a groundbreaking fucking feature film. And then the sequels are okay, but they don't.
Opinions vary.
You know, reload. Yeah, right. Anyway, with the Resurrections, I mean, there's so much they apparently want to say in one movie that it just had my brain in a whirl both times I've watched it. But I don't know. It doesn't hold the same feel. They're just not necessarily trying to get me attached to new characters or anything like that. But I don't. Initial thoughts are not fair in this movie.
Sure. Okay.
And we've been taking towards like. Sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. I was going to ask you to go next.
Oh, yeah. I love this turn that we're seeing in some films that are like deconstructing certain genres. So like we have Logan deconstructing like the superhero franchise, and then we have even like Lynch did it with Twin Peaks: The Return. Like I love the idea of like reflecting back, and like especially as a creator in that genre. So to see Wachowski approach this movie and approach what the Matrix means to them, and like what it means to like the general zeitgeist and shit, I thought was really interesting. I just thought that it was way too fucking hammy and heavy-handed. I felt like this movie was trying to bash me with a club with what it was trying to say. Like if I watch, like if we compared it to a movie close to it, we would look at something like Logan, right? So Logan effectively does the same thing and reflects on like what these movies mean to the zeitgeist and what these movies mean to the people who like them and the people who create them. But it's done in a way where it doesn't take away from the story. And in this movie, it definitely took. I feel like it was more what it was trying to say than it was a coherent film. I guess is what I'm trying to get at.
Sure.
Like I felt like the movie itself could have been better, but that's not to say that I don't appreciate what the movie was attempting to do. Like there was very clearly like motive and intent in the making of this movie, and I can see it and it's there and I can appreciate it. But man, there's like if everything is done with intent, that means somebody chose to write the line, I still know kung fu, and like not expect that to be hammy as fuck. You know what I mean? Like even if you're like trying to satirize your own shit, it's still corny. Like it's you know what I mean? It doesn't matter what the intent is. This scene is still corny as shit. But I don't know. It's like entertaining. The fight scenes felt really flat to me too, I guess.
Yeah, that's my biggest complaint is fight scenes aren't anywhere near the original trilogy. That's just in choreography. That carries over
the whole movie for me. You know what I mean? That's kind of how I felt about the majority of the movie. Like people's performances and the writing, it all just kind of felt like it's just there. It feels frustrated.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's an interesting movie. I don't hate watching it.
Sure. Joe, how about you? Just your basic initial thoughts.
Well, I haven't seen 2 or 3, Matrix 2 or 3. Haven't seen the original like 15 years, I'd say. So I was a little bit lost. Starting with number 4. But I mean, I tried to appreciate it for what it is, and either way, I'm still pretty confused with everything that was going on. My initial thoughts are that I didn't enjoy it. I wanted to be watching something else the whole time. I have thoughts on it. Like I think the acting was just bad. The fight scenes were flat. I didn't know what was at stake in this movie. Like, is the world gonna end? Is Keanu Reeves gonna die? So without that, the fight scenes have no meaning to me. So I can't appreciate.
I feel like them. 2 would fill in that blank of what's at stake for you.
Well, it effectively felt like a damsel in distress movie. Like, homie, it's Mario going to rescue Princess Peach, but in the Matrix.
A little bit,
which I felt like was probably not the vehicle for something like Resurrections. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But I love that she ends up rescuing him.
Yeah.
Right? And she ends up being just as powerful as him, if not more. So I'm excited to see that dynamic go forward. Decided to continue here.
Yeah, I could keep talking, but I just have so many questions about like what even happened in this movie.
Sure.
Complaining about
that's fair. Since you missed 2 movies. Yeah.
And I haven't seen the first one in more than a decade.
Yeah.
Wild. To go to this movie after not seeing 2 and 3.
Right.
Molander, I want to know why you love Matrix.
I grew up with the franchise, I was just like entering adulthood as this franchise began, you know what I mean? And I kind of, it was formative years, and it was always just, I don't know, something that I thought was really cool. I do remember being not super happy at the end of Revolutions, 3rd one. Because it got all Jesus-y.
Really?
Yeah. And I was like, oh, this is dumb, but I don't know. I've grown out of that. I'm fine with it now. But yeah, it was such a cultural phenomenon as I was like entering my like late teens, early 20s. And it holds nostalgia for me still. And I will say, like, the original is still the best out of the 4 by quite a bit. But I really like Reloaded, the second one. Revolutions is okay. And I think this is on par with Reload. I think it's better than Revolutions, but not as good as the original.
Okay. Why do you like this movie?
What I really like about this movie, and I think without this, the movie doesn't work, is that sequence in sort of when it's transitioning from the first act to the second act, and it's like the writer's room where they're writing the video game Matrix 4, and that really makes this movie work, right? Because the movie is like commenting on its own absurdity, and that like it shouldn't exist, and there's all these different voices saying like what it should be and what the originals were, and they're all completely different. It's chaos, and
it's like a conversation between Lana Wachowski and Warner Brothers.
Exactly.
Kind of
like
that's exactly
it's a conversation I imagine actually happened in the writers of this movie, you know, and they put it in the movie, and I think that's fucking cool, right?
I think because of that, the movie suffers. That's my argument. I think because the movie's trying so hard to push that, it takes away from the actual meat of the movie.
From the actual story of like escaping Matrix. Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
And here's the thing. I totally appreciate the conversation. I really do. I like reflective movies like this. So that's why I'm like so torn about it, because I'm infinitely curious about it. It feels angry in a way. You know what I mean? Like it kind of almost feels angry, and it feels like kind of argumentative, and it feels like it doesn't want to exist, but at the same time, like it also wants to. But it also wants to be like, but the fans really want it, and like it's the next generation, and these are the people that it inspired, and like I don't know, it goes between like oddly masturbatory and like angry. You know what I mean? It's very odd.
Did they make a joke that they were just making it to make money at all? Because that I would respect that.
I mean, I'm sure that's in there, probably.
Okay.
I'll tell you what this movie really inspired out of me, and that's me wanting another season of Mindhunter. I was like, man, I really want a new season of Mindhunter right now.
I really want that too. Oh my god. God, that show's fucking good. Yeah.
So I noticed there was no Lawrence Fishburne and
that was deliberate.
Leaving. Was that just because they couldn't come back?
No, it was deliberate.
I've been reading through the wiki
I don't even
here.
think Lawrence Fishburne was asked. Yeah,
right.
There wasn't.
Lawrence Fishburne was not asked. They must have written the part the way they did before they thought about that. Yeah. And then apparently Hugo Weaving was asked, but he had a conflict, something else he was working. Says he had scheduling conflicts with his involvement in Tony Kushner's theatrical adaptation of The Visit.
Oh, that's more.
I will say, watching a Matrix movie without Hugo Weaving definitely loses a lot of its gravitas. Yeah. He was such a good villain.
For sure, yeah. But I like John Groff. I think he was cool, and I think it's neat that like they open on him, like the first time we see him, he's like looking out on the city and literally quotes Smith from the first movie, right? And it like tells you right away, like this is Smith, and you're like, is that Smith? I don't know, but then it confirms later. I also really like the addition of the analyst with
oh really?
Neil Patrick Harris. Yeah, that I like that it just wasn't the architect again. You know what I mean? Which Joe, that's from 2.
He's a villain, okay.
You missed him. But I like that it was a different program that was in charge of the Matrix, and for reasons. I don't know. I like that. I like that they changed that a little bit.
It felt a little crammed to me.
Yeah.
It felt like, oh yeah, by the way, we have a different villain and he took over kind of. I don't know. Exposition. Let's go.
Oh,
I did like the aspect of his character. I did like the idea of a villain, like a different kind, because like Smith was very confrontational and very aggressive, and like it was all action and shit like that, and like having a villain that was just like trying to keep him in that mindset. I like, you know what I mean? But also I'm sure that like he is a stand-in for something that the movie's trying to say in regards to like maybe Lana Wachowski and their struggle with the Matrix or something. because he's like, I don't know, I don't know how to parse this movie, man. I'm like trying to parse this movie right now. I can't parse this movie.
Are you talking about the analyst or Smith?
The analyst.
Yeah.
I thought that was weird that the psychiatrist is the villain. Like, what is this movie made by Scientologists?
Here's another thing. Here's another thing that I picked up on in the second watch through is that with what red pilling means in the culture right now, and then watching this movie and then watching them all munch red pills felt gross to me, just because of what it means. It's the same thing when I watch like Fight Club. Like I like Fight Club, but every time they're talking about snowflakes and shit, it just like has a different meaning now. So it's like it feels grosser when I hear it.
Yeah. And it's kind of like putting the Punisher logo in something in a Punisher show.
Yes.
Marvel or something. When that symbol's been co-opted by people who are completely different ideologies, it just it feels icky. But like, you got to do it. Like you can't not have the iconic thing, you know?
Right. If Resurrections would have addressed that in some way, that would have been like a
yes.
Missed opportunity.
I remember reading an interview. I always mispronounce his name. I believe it's Chuck Palahniuk, the guy who wrote Fight Club.
Fight Club, right? Yeah.
But I read an interview and him talking about how he like effectively co-opted the term snowflake in the way that it's used, and talking about how much he regrets being responsible for that.
Right. Well,
Sure.
It's supposed to be a criticism of toxic masculinity or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, crazy. Yeah.
I feel like, and it's kind of, we touched on this in our American Psycho episode too, where like people take away the wrong things from pieces of fiction, and the culture just runs with it, you know, and the author loses control pretty easily once it's out there. So that's just a job risk, you know.
Yeah.
No, I will say overall my feelings about this movie, I'm glad that it exists because I get to like look it over. Like this is a movie that I would probably watch again just because it's infinitely fascinating to me.
Sure.
Good or bad, you know what I mean? There's just a lot going on. There's like a lot to look over, especially having watched through all of them. And like I'm the same as you. Like I watched a lot of The Matrix when I was younger. Totally grew up with the franchise. Love the aesthetic. At the time, anyways. I don't feel like it carried over very well, but
it was well.
Yo, like what the? Why do the robots look like animals? Why would they craft them to look like animals? That makes no sense. Why do they care if they look like animals? They're out here looking like birds and shit. Fucking why? This infinite computer AI is like, we need to make it look like an animal for literally no reason.
Yeah. Well, they did even back in the originals, like the squiddy things, and like when you went to the machine city, all the machines were like these little bug things. Like,
but they felt more alien. You know what I mean? Like they felt menacing.
Sure.
When I'm looking at like big flying stingrays, I'm like,
Yeah.
Weird
also, like, why does that one have wings?
Yeah.
Right? Like, why?
Don't know.
We've demonstrated that the machines can fly without any kind of wings at all. Why does it have wings?
So fucking silly. Yeah, I don't know. It's weird because like in the older movies, the shit that I liked the most was when they were out of the Matrix. Like I loved seeing the shit that had to do with like Zion and like the real world. And in this one, every time I was in the real world, I didn't give a fuck. And I was way more curious about what was happening with Neo. Because I like the idea, like I said, of like them or like Neo deconstructing what it meant to be Neo. You know what I mean? And like the movie deconstructing that. Like I'm really curious about that. And then we go to like Zion and shit, and it's people arguing and like, well, I'm gonna get a court martial, and it's like I don't fucking care, man. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of fun though. I think apparently the box office was terrible, but I think you can attribute that to HBO Max. Like I think it came out like the same day, right?
I think so.
I seem to remember like going to the theater
Yeah.
and watching this, and like coming home and watching it again.
Oh, wow.
Like now that I know the story, now I kind of watch it again to like pick up things. You know, it's one of those kind of movies.
So Mullen,
So
you wanted to talk
Go
about
ahead.
what are they called?
requels. Yeah. And I was really between this and Scream 5. I wanted to talk about requels and wasn't sure which
what
was.
is a requel again?
So a requel is a movie that is both a sequel and a reboot, right? So it brings over elements and often characters from the older movies in the franchise, but it is breathing new life into the franchise. Usually it's been several years since the last entry, and it's starting a new story, and those kind of old characters are kind of legacy characters. And you
Okay.
usually have like a newer protagonist, which I guess in this one we have not gotten a newer protagonist other than I guess maybe Bugs, but I think she's really more the audience than anything else.
I want something that's confident enough in itself to be able to set itself in a predetermined world without needing to rely on predetermined characters and story events.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like even one of my personal favorite like sequel / reboots, the new Blade Runner. Even that movie like still had to have Harrison Ford and like still had to have, you know what I mean? Like it's just have enough confidence to tell your own fucking story, you know?
Yeah.
But that's usually a different situation because it's usually a different director. Like it was Denis Villeneuve who did 2049, you know what I mean? So it's not the same director coming back. I would expect that the movie probably would have played a little bit differently had it been Ridley Scott.
Yeah, I'm sure.
It seems like requels are trying to have their cake and eat it too. Like they want it to be canon, but also not canon at the same time.
Yeah, I mean it's canon for sure. But it's trying to like cash in on nostalgia, but also bring in new audiences. You know?
Yeah, it's the cashing in on nostalgia that I don't like.
Yeah.
It's hard to carry a movie
And
on
that's
that.
a lot of our pop culture. Right? So
there's ways to do it that are more subtle and I feel add to the story that don't take away from it. Like once again, 2049 had you removed Harrison Ford from that movie, the vibe and tone and aesthetic of that movie would have evoked enough nostalgia in me on its own. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't need these extra characters and shit. Just being here is enough for me. You know what I'm saying? Like just hearing those like whiny like saxophone weird tones in the background and shit and seeing somebody in that big leather duster, it's like, okay, we're back. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think in this movie, I don't think the new characters are enough to carry the plot. Although, like, they don't really get to flesh them out much at all because the movie focuses so hard on Neo and Trinity. But yeah, the more I hear you talk, the more I think, man, we should have picked Scream, or I should have picked Scream 5. Because I think that movie can stand on its own. And I think if you took Nev Campbell and Courtney Cox and David Arquette out of it, you still have a pretty good Scream movie. Not that they weren't great in it, but I digress.
There's have you ever seen what is it? Freddy's Dead, Freddy's Back, New Nightmare. Wes Craven's New Nightmare.
Yes.
You ever seen that?
Yeah. Yep.
That's
where,
a good example of like
making a new movie, and yeah. It's a good example. Like they're making a new movie, and he comes into existence, like into the real world somehow. I never really got the rules behind with Freddy Krueger in the first place.
Yeah. No, dude, New Nightmare is a classic. I remember watching that movie and not really being able to appreciate it, and then I revisited it again just a couple of years ago and was like, yo, this is actually pretty good.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I actually just recently watched it because I like came across it on some streaming service and was like, let's give this a shot. It was good. I liked it.
Oh, holy shit! That's the other show I watched. Wow. Okay, I watched Interview with the Vampire.
Oh, nice.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, it was. If you guys know anything about the franchise whatsoever or care about the franchise at all, I would recommend maybe checking it out. It's pretty good.
The remake? The new? Yeah.
But once again, I feel like they approach the retelling of it in a better way. Like it feels like Anne Rice coming back to it now as a better writer and a more experienced writer and being like, okay, let's do this right this time.
Sure.
That's what it feels like watching it. And like the casting is really good.
Yeah, I remember liking the movie.
She liked the original.
Like 30 years ago or whenever that was.
Yeah, dude, I was a huge fan of the books when I was in high school, so I read all the books. And I loved the movie. I didn't like Queen of the Damned, but it had a baller soundtrack at the time. I remember that.
Yeah. Was that related to? Oh yeah, because that was Anne Rice,
new metal,
wasn't
yeah.
it? Yeah. Okay.
Should we do ratings?
Yeah, I suppose. Nick, how about you? What's your rating?
I give this about probably a 6.5. I mean, I'm much more into the whole. When in terms of the Matrix, I'm just much more interested in the whole like anthological stories, like the Animatrix and the comics, and just seeing little side stories that'll probably catch my attention more than the requel tried to do. It just seemed like this movie more seemed like more of a continuation more than it did a reboot, because I mean it seemed like a whole passing of the torch with Trinity having control over the Matrix at the end. Like it also just had so many messages it was trying to say that it scrambled my brain. Like I will hold sway that the original Matrix is a life-changing movie, in my opinion. Having seen in the theaters, like, that movie has way too much good to it to ignore, in my opinion. It blends fucking non-supernatural, I'm sorry, sci-fi. It's groundbreaking. It's a groundbreaking movie to me. But I just couldn't really latch on to everything that it was throwing at me.
Okay. Jeff, how about you?
Yeah, I'd probably be like around a 7, but if I'm being honest, like between a 6 and an 8, you know what I mean? Like I kind of bounce back around on this movie. I had a much different view of it on the second time than I did the first time. And I feel like if I watched it a third time, I would feel differently about it again. But that's also why it's rated kind of high for me, because that, in my opinion, makes it a somewhat good movie because I find it engaging. So that's good. So like a 7 out of 10.
Okay. Joe?
Well, before I say my rating, I feel like I just want to say we should have a rule to not recommend sequels. You're asking
I don't like that rule.
Yeah, we did Terminator 2. That movie slapped.
Right?
Going forward, I won't be watching movies that take place after other movies. Like I said, this movie's it's either not for me or you have to have watched the ones before it.
I think you have to watch the ones before.
Oh, okay. That would have been good to know. I don't like it. I'm giving it a 0 out of 10.
Oh,
wow.
Okay.
Hot take.
It's just popcorn movie, you know.
That's our first zip. That's our first.
That's our first 0. Yeah.
In this fucking
Okay.
session.
That's fair. All right. Appreciate the honesty.
I'd like to watch the original someday just to appreciate that one for what it is, but
Sure.
Seriously,
Yeah.
I enjoyed watching the first. Like, I always love going back to the first movie. I always do. The music, like, the music as well. Like, Don Davis did such an incredible job with the music in the first initial trilogy. Like, I have a very high fondness for the first movie. Absolutely.
Dude, and I'm telling you, Hugo Weaving, man. Oh
yeah.
Oh, great villain. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Now, how's Keanu Reeves' acting in the first movie? Because I feel like he has such a limited range. Like
he does,
I feel like he
that's
works
fine.
for
Like,
the role.
Yeah, with the whole role, it
he
didn't
can do a dumb
need
guy.
all the
He
range
can
of
do
the
a.
world. We don't
I
need Daniel
remember-
Day-Lewis fucking playing Neo, you know?
I remember reading an article about why, like, an argument for why Keanu Reeves is the perfect action movie hero, because he's so blank slate. It's really easy to like put yourself in his shoes, because
Sure.
he's just cookie cutter. Like, he's just Keanu Reeves, man. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like, even
that
if John
makes
Wick,
sense.
like, I love John Wick, but like, he's still just Keanu Reeves. Like, that's fine.
I still
mean,
need to see
he
the third
plays
one.
a boring, muffled, angsty guy so well. Really,
Yeah.
he does his part so well that I can't discredit him for anything. Really.
Yeah.
Well, he
I
cut
think-
his teeth playing Bill or Ted. I don't remember which guy. He's
Bill.
a guy with his mouth agape all the time.
Or no, he's Ted. He's Ted. Yeah. But yeah, I think for Keanu Reeves for Neo, I think playing a character that doesn't even understand his own existence, let alone the world around him, I think works for Keanu Reeves. I think he's just dumb guy enough, you know what I mean? But he's also just relatable enough to put yourself in his shoes. Like,
But he's also the
Jeff was saying.
chosen one who's going to save the world for some reason.
Yeah. But like throughout that trilogy, even at the end of it, he doesn't understand his own power or his place in it. He just knows he's supposed to do the thing.
Gotcha.
You know?
Yeah, that's a good thing, yeah.
And I think Keanu Reeves is an excellent actor to play that character. Doesn't quite understand his own role in the fiction. Anyway, as far as a rating, I'd give this movie a good, I don't know, 7.5 or 8 out of 10. Obviously,
Like
there are better
elevator
movies.
Elevator music in the background right now.
Sorry, it's because I'm outside. It's the music playing out of the speakers. I can't do much about it.
Okay.
Sorry.
Anyway, about a 7.5 or 8. I think that rating might go up if there are like sequels that pick some things up. I think that would increase this movie's value for me. But it also might go down if sequels are bad. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, I think context matters. Like,
Yeah, true.
you know, seeing the middle movies in a franchise of 4 movies.
I was told this was a requel. It's
a
complete reboot. You don't need to see the other ones.
Yeah, but it's a sequel. If it was a reboot, I would have said reboot.
But it's supposed to do both.
It is. It is both.
Yeah,
It's
once
the
again,
start
like
of a
Logan,
new
like,
story, but it's after the old story.
Logan wouldn't have been half as good without having seen X-Men. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. For sure.
Are we ready
Yo.
for that rec?
Yeah. What's our next fucking viewing?
It's my favorite movie of all time, buddy. We're gonna watch fucking Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
All right. Yes.
Nice!
Yeah.
I'm down, man. All right.
I haven't seen this in so long. I'm gonna love
Oh,
watching
that movie is my childhood.
Dude, it's legitimate. It's always been my favorite movie. I don't think I've ever seen a movie I enjoy watching more than Who Framed Roger Rabbit. It's just a good
Oh
time
my
every
God.
time.
Yes.
Nice pick. Nice.
Oh, you know, and that I feel like Who Framed Roger. Maybe I should save it for the episode, but I'm gonna just say it anyway. I feel like Who Framed Roger Rabbit makes every other thing like every time that there's some kind of like legal contract dispute that keeps X character from being in a movie with Y character. I'm like, what about Roger Rabbit though? They have made Mickey Mouse and Bugs Bunny. What the fuck? If they could do it, why can't Spider-Man be in the Marvel movies?